Okay. This is kind of a talk I've been kicking around in the back of my head for about a year and a half because it's advice I've been trying to give to both people I work with and people I mentor. So, who am I? And this is the standard disclaimer. I am a senior security consultant at Leviathan Security Group in Seattle. I'm a consultant by day, which means I exchange money for security advice. I practice law as a hobby. Standard disclaimer. Nothing in this talk should constitute legal advice, or good advice for that matter. After all, I'm here on a Saturday, and I'm also a lawyer, so I've made many, many bad decisions in my life. Don't follow me. The disclaimer, I'm an attorney, I'm not your attorney. Yet. Hopefully not. So why this talk? I've watched too many competent security engineers, pen testers, defensive side, coders, and the like get promoted. Yay! Promotion! Except in becoming competent managers. Just mess it up. And they're angry, and they took like a 10% pay raise, and they gain weight, they get angry, they get divorced, and it's like, you screwed up. You were a hot shit pen tester, and you could make decent money, and you were happy doing that thing. And then a promotion came, and you're like, all of a sudden, now I'm a security manager, I'm director of InfoSec. Or God forbid you went to a startup and you're a CISO. And yeah, look at me, I'm a CISO, except like you've lost your hair, you're drinking more than even we do. It's a problem, right? It's like, so it's, in a way, this is a pre-intervention. Before we all have to read you a letter that says, we care about you, and we've all wrote a letter about how much we love you, stop being a manager. But if you do decide to go into management, this is the advice I wish I had. This is the advice I am now giving, and instead of my random things given when people ask me questions, I like that I have the opportunity to, one, get feedback, and two, have Adrian record me, so that way I can just now, instead of having to have, a conversation with people, to say, like, refer to my talk. So, find a place to be a rock star. If you want to stay in pen testing, if you want to stay in your thing, there's still enough money in it. I don't think anyone here has needs that high that they have to go into management. Go into management because you think, hey, I can now do more interesting things, but they're new things. And here's the concept: specific competence versus general competence. We all know that person who has no social skills whatsoever, maybe even no idea of how a shower works, and yet they are absolutely genius at disassembling code. Like, I'm thinking of actual reference notes in some code, which was, first step, do this, second step, call this person. And we actually have sold that at my shop as, we will do code review. And this, I've watched them do that, and I don't know how this does. Like, you pump the code through AppScan or Veracode or something like that, and it spits out stuff. And then he just looks at it and kind of cocks his head and says, oh no, that too. Like, so I'm in an automated system, didn't find the vuln. You just looked at it funny. And like, yeah, oh yeah, that's kind of like a nested buffer overflow. If you have this condition, that condition, like, you just stared at the code and it did that. And God forbid that person should ever go become like director of InfoSec, because he will fail. He'll be a genius at just put him in a room with code, and eventually the code will come out and say, and be able to point on the code where the bad person touched it. So this is what we call the Peter principle. I'm going back to general competence. There are people who, like, I will figure it out whatever it is. I would like to think I have some of that, because I have done things like, with no forewarning, just like look at something and solve it, because I have a generalized model for how to solve problems. The last time I did, and I was very chuffed about it, was I'm parking my motorcycle and someone just says, hey, do you know how to fix my bike? And I realize what it is. It's that the kickstand switch is broken. So I just pull up put in neutral and start. And he's like, how did you know to do that? I'm like, it would take me longer to explain than just fix the kickstand switch. It's sort of a generalized competence. I can take a problem, and a new problem that I haven't seen before, and fix it. That's why I'm a consultant, right? People come to me and go, do you know how to fix this? And I'm like, no, I don't have a solution for you. But I will go into the room with that problem, and a week later, and a sizable bill, I will come out with something that hopefully looks like a solution. But the problem is that many people come up through security and they're really good at one thing and they get shoved into another and don't realize it's a new context. You have to code switch. You have to you have to learn a new skill set. So I hate watching people flounder. I hate watching people who are smart and capable just take a new job and screw it up. And I hate being on the outside, like, yelling. I'm like at a movie, a horror movie, like, don't open the door! Shoot the bad guy again! Get a shovel, smack him until the shovel breaks. Now you're done, right? And I hate having to, I'm thinking of a particular mentee of mine who, managed to screw something up so basic. It's like, I'm screaming that you didn't either A, think to call me, or B, just why aren't you bright enough to figure that out? And it was something really simple. So this is the advice I'm trying to give, is recognize your context. So some of them are my client employees, and that's also in a way sadder when an existing security resource at one of my clients quits. They go on to a bigger, better job, and then they look around and go, well, who around here? Oh, you've been running DevOps. You're now chief of security. And look, competent DevOps people don't have to move into security management to make more money. A competent DevOps person can be DevOps until at least the next whatever replaces Agile happens, right? But for now, you don't have to take the promotion to make more money. You just get better at it. And I've met people do automation stuff, and I'm like, I don't know half the words you said. But I can't admit to that, because otherwise then I would look like the idiot, and I can't look like the idiot. But the bit is, I hate watching smart people take a new job and screw it up. So, moving on up. You're a security or a pen tester, and now you're doing all the things. You're in charge of compliance. You're in charge of answering those vendor security questionnaires. Some of you chuckle. Some of you go, what's that? And that's really where it's, show us on this doll where the vendor touched you and made you feel bad. Really, it's show us on this spreadsheet where the vendor's going to touch you and make everybody feel bad. It's a different environment, right? You're now having to go and be nice. You can't just bash code. Your life is not spent in running Metasploit. You're now dealing with non-techies on a regular basis. Some of you may go, oh dear God, what is that like? And others of you may look at that as a challenge, and it will be. But now the problem is, now that you're managing, you are one of many needs. You no longer are opening and closing tickets. You are now in a somewhat gooier space. You are also a cost center now. And some of you may understand that inherently. I will talk about this in a little bit. You have new metrics. There are new ways by which we determine how valuable you are to your organization. When you are pen testers, I'm making it rain shells! And, yay, you're a genius, right? Now it's, wow, yeah. And I talk to people who are security managers, and they talk about how elite pen testers they were. And I once went, yeah, I went all state in football. And he's looking at me, he's glaring at me. It's it's the same conversation, just different context. Stop talking about your previous achievements. That's not your job anymore. And if you go and do a pen test as a security manager, that's a stupid idea for multiple reasons. One, you're too expensive. Two, you're not letting the new pen testers get some experience. And three, you're supposed to be doing other things. So it's a strange new landscape you're in. You have new friends. You have people like me who knock on the door and say, hey, I would like to be your friend for money. That doesn't sound right. Actually, it's very much what I do, except I get it in checks. I don't get it left on the nightstand. Okay, so what got you here isn't going to work anymore. There's a difference between good at finding and exploiting bugs and doing security for your organization. You have a lot of things you have to watch. You're not the line cook anymore. You're the expediter. You're the chef. You have to make sure that everything meets a certain level. You have to worry about a whole bunch of other things a little bit. Even if there's someone else who's supposed to worry about that all the time, you have to worry about them and the thing. You have to work with others. You have to explain yourself. You have to justify your existence. You have to put findings in context. This is hard. This is really hard. It's hard enough when I watch pen testers try to explain how a CVSS 10 means something, and then explaining it to a non-technical manager at our client, and they get angry. Like, it means total fucking ownage! It's like, well, except it's not. Yes, it's a vulnerability, and you should fix it if you can, but does it affect their day-to-day business? And I remember this is several jobs ago, where someone found a vuln, and it was in the application to reserve specific machines in the in-house gym at the company. And a pen tester's like, look, I can randomly assign things. It's like, wow, yeah, oh my God, you made it rain shells. So that means that you could completely take over the Nautilus system. You could take over availability of the Nautilus system. And he's like, but that's great. It was a web app that like someone made in like 12 minutes. And yes, it hits all 10 of the OAuth's top 10. But it doesn't matter. Cause it's still, no one's gonna haxer it. And he's like, well, I did. Like, yeah, but no one cares. Right? Like, okay, yes, you have now the Nautilus machine is owned by lol dongs. You win. But no one cares. Put it in context. So, new game, new rules. Everything that brought you here, that competence you had as a really good security engineer, is now 5% of your job. You know the language. You can go back and talk to the engineers, but you're now a people person. Please someone get that reference. So, it's no longer cool to be punk as fuck. As fun as it was to be that lead guy or gal, doesn't matter. Your tools are resources, attention, and buy-in. And I find that when I occasionally do interviews and people ask, like, what tool sets are you familiar with? I'm like, PowerPoint and conversation. Oh, so social engineering. Like, yeah, close enough. Yes, I still know how Metasploit works. I still, remember many of the flags for Nmap. But that doesn't matter. It's now I have to get an organization and people in that organization to pay attention. Figuring this out takes time, and you don't have much of it. Your department or your organization needs things. You need money, you need a budget, you need resources, you might need software, but most importantly, you just might need attention from the rest of the organization. And this is I hate leading with fear because that's what we as security people do, but I've met people who didn't get this and they isolate themselves and they still remain being that I say no all the time. And that must feel really good, except that then your job is when there's a breach, what happens to you? You go bye-bye. Look, we fixed the problem. It was Bob. We got rid of Bob and we assure you that the problems will be fixed. So you had a job and your job was to be the sacrificial lamb. So you are a minister without portfolio. This I'm thinking of a specific friend of mine who got to be the security director at his firm. And I asked, so, you got a promotion? Yep. What's your budget? Oh, I don't have one. How many direct reports do you have? I don't have any. Oh. We don't call that a promotion. We call that you got a raise. Good job. So you have minimal hard power. You can't make anybody do a damn thing. You have a small budget or no budget. You have not much actual authority, right? And if you have to use it, you have none. Never test it never test how much actual authority you have, because you may find out how little you have. You demand someone get fired and you realize, nope. So, few staff, but all is not lost. You have soft power. Soft power is persuasive power. You can get other people to say things like, look, come to me when you have a security question. The security person said this, and you get them to say this. If you have to say it, you're kind of weak. If you get them to say it, the security person said we needed this when you're talking to IT, when you're talking to HR, when you're talking to other groups. And you have allies you don't know about. And I like this joke, strangers are friends you just haven't met. So, making friends and explaining yourself. And this is the fun part. Recognize that details about security can be deadly. Technical details, we eat, sleep, and breathe them as engineers. As in the management space, they just get boring. The people who don't care really don't care. And the analogy I come up with is, it's like a refrigerator. How many people here know what kind of refrigerant the refrigerator uses? How many people? 1, 2. Okay. However, for most people, when they buy a refrigerator, are worried about things like the warranty. Does it fit with the rest of the decor in my kitchen? Is it one of those, the freezer on the top or the freezer on the bottom? You care about things that matter to you, and the technical details are locked away under a container, under a cover that says no user serviceable parts inside. In a way, that's how you should be talking about security when you're talking to non-technical people. You're talking about benefits and capabilities, not how you do it. Bike shedding can slow you down. Getting hyper-technical with the few people who might be able to go with you, sidebar that shit. Have a conversation with just you two and come up with your joint solution before you bore the hell out of everybody else. Before you get bogged down in details that mean that you lost time to convince people about budget and timing. Violent agreement can stop you dead. That's where you have two people who are arguing such fine points they don't matter. And if you can figure out a way to not do that, tell me how. Because I find it all the time talking with my fellow security people. But you want to very quickly get to a consensus where there are details you haven't worked out, sidebar them, put them aside, but move on. And this is one I like when you're talking about budgeting. A checkbox checked really hard doesn't check other boxes. We need a firewall. This is a super awesome firewall. It's going to eat up 95% of our budget. Don't buy it then. Because I checked it real hard and it doesn't matter, right? Sometimes it's handled is 10 times better than an explanation. Like try to explain the details of your IDS to the nice people in HR. And what they wanted to hear was, got that handled. Once you've built some level of trust with them, good, because they have 95 other things they want to deal with, and you're talking about packet inspection, they're just gone, right? You want to be able to report in, here's the things that I do that you care about. They're taken care of. Trust me, if you have specifics, ask. But even then, when they ask, still keep it simple. The executive level, which is 3 bullet points, and 2 of them are oxygen is needed for life and I like money. So you're left with the 1 remaining bullet point. Understand motivations. Why do people care about what you're doing? Understand their motivation. Why all of a sudden are the people from legal talking about our DLP? All of a sudden, you come down to my pit and ask me questions. Instead of going, well, our DLP, and not in a confrontational way, but you seem to have a problem I'm not going to tell you the solution. I want to understand your problem. Why do you have these questions about DLP? And if you can do this in a diplomatic and friendly enough manner, they will give you their problem and have you solve it, which makes you win. Because now you have power over some of your environment. Understand your own motivations too. I'm thinking of every security person I know, and this is early on where they're still like, I will be the bad cop. I will get people fired for not following the information retention policy. And you're like, and realize if you have a cop fetish, save that for at home with your significant other and not real law enforcement. So, natural allies. This is the first group of people who are going to want to help you. They're the strangers you haven't, they're the friends you haven't met yet. They generally want what you want. They don't know it yet. They may not want everything you want. They may care about one small slice of your portfolio because you are one small slice of their portfolio. But they care about that thing. Figure out what that thing is and help them help you. Because one person asking for, I need this really expensive piece of technology. The example I come up with is DLP. I walked a client through this. And the security person wanted DLP. The problem is that the DLP solution they wanted was something like, worked out to be about 8% of their annual IT budget. Yeah. And it was like, ugh! And it's like, well, wait a minute. No. Because you need to make this other people's problems as well. There are other people out there who also want DLP. They just didn't know it yet. And we got them like, well, what do you mean? Like, okay, regulatory affairs, compliance, because this is a healthcare organization. And they're like, oh, wait a minute, whoa. This will solve this problem? Yeah. Oh, we'll find a budget for it. And all of a sudden, it's not 8% of the IT budget. It's 1.5% of some other budget as well. And like, okay, solved. Like, go make friends. Don't complain to me that you can't get a cheaper DLP solution. I'll do that. I'll find one. But maybe there's money elsewhere. And you just had to go make a friend to go, like, I have this problem. And like, oh, we have that same problem. Well, that thing, I don't care about the details. I don't care about the refrigerant in the refrigerator. My problem is my beer remains warm. And you're like, well, I can make your beer cold. I can make you not worry about data leaving the premises. Problem is easier to solve now. So, they may not understand your problem. You have to figure out a way to explain to them how, if it is their problem, and not in a stampy way, in a, let me understand your problems, and when I hear the words data, all of a sudden I'll pay more attention. They may not want your exact solution. God forbid, and this is one of those things, those of you who are going to go into technical sales, I will teach you an evil trick. Never talk to IT people. Talk to the people who can make the IT people do things. Go talk to HR. Go talk to legal. I have watched solutions get rolled that were like, who bought this product? Oh, well, HR made us. Like, because you let the HR person in a room with a salesperson from Symantec? Did you check to see how many fingers were left? like you bought who? Oh, right. And it's like, so if you do technical sales, go in that direction. Go find it. Avoid the IT people until the last minute. It's like, oh, by the way, I need 8U in this rack. Who are you and why? See this? This is a signed statement of work. See ya. Okay. So you want to be able to talk to the other groups to say, what are your problems that vis-a-vis data? And if you're that no guy or gal, someday you're going to show up and there's going to be like, what's that box? What's it doing in my data center? And it's too late. You didn't make a friend early enough. You got a solution crammed down your throat by another department because the salesperson cut you out. So, examples of people, these are your natural allies, the first core people who generally are going to want things you want. Risk management, if you're big enough. Because probably You have an insurance policy for data breaches. What determines the cost of the premium? Your controls. So, risk management, if you can go and say, what controls are required? Hey, wait a minute. I do this, it's going to cost me $10,000 for that control, and it will save the company maybe $25,000 in premiums. Everybody looks like a hero. Talk to them. HR. HR has compliance needs, and usually if you go and say, I can solve that for you, or I can I can partially solve that for you, I'll get that fixed. Yay. Legal. Go make friends with a lawyer, or all of the lawyers, because they're worrying about things, and oftentimes there is a natural divide between the legal side and the technical side. I know. I went to law school, and I think I repaired more laptops and pulled more viruses out in 3 years of law school than I did in like 10 years of straight IT.
You want to make friends? Save somebody's term paper at the end of the semester.
Damn Skippy.
Friend for life.
There's a problem, though. All those groups have something in common, and let's talk about corporate realpolitik. All those groups have those natural allies, that first core people who probably want what you want or want things that you want, are in similar constraints. They are cost centers. Legal doesn't make you any money. HR doesn't make you any money. They prevent losses, but it's akin to, my wife often says that our cats prevent bears, because there are no bears in our house, but there are 2 cats. That is something we say to our cats because it's amusing. But as a cost center, it's hard to say, well, we can prove that our house is bear-free because of the cats. The cats are a cost center. They bring us no revenue. Legal brings you no revenue. You bring no revenue. You are fighting for that same kind of budgetary pool for other stuff. You are fighting with the same group. Security is a product enhancement nobody wants, is often a real problem, or wants to pay for, or even wants to think about. I had an argument about early safety engineering in U.S. cars. 1950s, Ford gets the idea of, we're going to sell safer cars. Make it an option called the lifeguard package. It's going to be soft dashboards, collapsible steering wheels, and seat belts. And why didn't it sell? Cost more, but the other problem was, what does it make you think when the salesperson's talking about things like, things you're going to bash your head into are things that are going to prevent you from hurting yourself? Is this car unsafe? Like, no, we're making it safer if you buy these options. All of a sudden, you no longer are friendly. It's now a creepy conversation. It took years and Volvo to very, very effectively make safety a selling point. Security is often not a selling point because all of a sudden it makes you feel squicky. So, second group of people you should be looking for are influencers outside of your natural allies. Your first go-to group are those natural allies. They think like you, but they're cost centers, and they're the people you'll have the most interactions with. So, let's talk about influencers. Revenue generation groups. Sales and product. If you're at a software company or you're in a manufacturing company, you have product that may or may not have security aspects. Salespeople, if they're selling your services and security is a part of those services, they are also natural people you want to talk to. Then you have senior management, and then you have customers or business partners. So, salespeople. They're outward facing. They spend most of their time talking to people who are not your coworkers. They're talking to customers. They have good insights into what the customers as a whole want. So if you have to modify product, or if you have to modify the way you provide a service, they're the best people to get an actual finger on the pulse to know what customers want. They have influence. I mean, they're in sales for a reason, right? They're good at influencing people. They're bringing in revenue. A salesperson, you go to senior management and say, I need this thing. Salesperson says, our customers say this, and the customer who asked for it last brings in $1.2 million worth of revenue a year. All of a sudden, you put a price tag on security that you can't do, that salesperson did. Because what are you now afraid of? You're afraid of that customer walking. They can help for general awareness. How important is security to our product? If you're Salesforce.com, pretty much. Because, well, no one wants their pipelines leaking. They can say things like, many of our customers are concerned. You're talking theoretically. I think our customers should be concerned, but how do you know? You don't talk about stuff. The salespeople talk to them on a regular basis and know the elements that they want in their product. And then specific ones. If a customer is asking for an external code review, that's helpful. That gets you leverage to go get that external code review that you wanted. Sales concerns. Here are the problems you're going to run into, what they're worried about. They're worried about sales friction. Hey, I just sold this thing, or I got a meeting with the head of HR for our HRIS product. Yay! Someone's going to make a commission. Security caveats slow the pace from initial meeting to when they get a commission check. And if you can somehow make it easier to talk about security and make it easier to say, yes, we're secure in a way that convinces that customer, you've reduced sales friction, which is very important to the salespeople. Maybe even a sales advantage. I've not seen this too often, but it can happen, where we are more expensive than our competitors, but let's talk about your security. Does the security matter about you? You're now playing the Volvo game, right? Hey, we do the same thing everything else does, but we have a lower chance of killing you. It's a great way of selling a lot of products. However, you may have to write marketing copy explaining our security in a page with some icons to people who didn't take a math class ever in their lives. This is fun. I do this now. I did it for one client, and now other clients like, hey, I saw this. Like, yeah, I wrote that. Do you want me to write it about you? Sure. And sometimes it's like hey, that reduced sales friction. Or I got someone who's like, hey, you seem to be better at this than the competitors. Well, guess what? You just made security more valuable. You made it a value add into the product. So let's talk about the product side, people. These are your engineers who are developing your software as a service, or maybe they're actually making product. They'd like to have secure product. Most engineers care about this, but they promise they'll be in the next sprint, or in the next release, or we promise before the heat death of the universe, right? Because it's like, hey, we should do security. And it's like, yeah, we should do a lot of things. As they're looking at their Scrum board going, ooh, that's a lot of work. Yep. Security, yeah, that's gonna go in there, right? So there are fears. Missing a deadline. Dear God, we blew that deadline. We're late to market against our competitors who rolled out a version. So they're afraid of that. They're afraid about not adding, hey, we can either add this, what we think is a competitive feature, or that security noise you're making about. It's a hard sell. So how can you help? You can help them define, rank, understand security needs. And you go like, oh, okay, you came up with your whole laundry list. We need to do these 87 things. And they go like, no, okay. Let's prioritize these. We really need to do these 3. These 3 are like, gotta. And you have to, now you're negotiating. You're working it out. And you basically, it sounds like you are giving up a little bit, but what you do is you're getting those 3 things in. Make them count. So, senior management. These are CXOs, VPs, and the like. They can be concerned about security. I have had those conversations. And sometimes they are absolutely painful because most of the people who got to senior management did not come up through engineering. They were ex-salespeople, are at a particular investment shop I did some work for. They were ex-investment officers. And talking about security, I watched their eyes glaze over. So I had to how do I bullet point this? How do I get this down to 1 or 2 bullet points about these are the things you need to do? The problem is that they're concerned about a lot of things. I'm having a conversation with somebody. They have 5 deals in flight for more than, $20 million. They maybe have something else they're worried about. And I'm trying to slot my security concerns somewhere in there. So I get very little of their attention, even when I'm in the room with them, because they're still kind of running through things in their head. The problem is that I have to explain things in terms they can easily digest, and they're going to make a snap decision. That's always the great way of doing something very, very detailed, right? Just do that. So sell it to them as cost, risk, loss, quantify it. Even if you have to make some good guesses. Make good guesses, but explain it to them in terms they understand. Don't talk about total ownage. Don't talk about a breach and say we will lose customers, we think it'll be worth this. It will cost this much to remediate. Okay, these are prices I can understand. It will cost X amount of dollars to roll the solution, and I think it reduces our chances. And I realize that there's a lot of assumptions in the middle of that. But if you speak it in those terms, they can at least grapple it. The problem is they're easily distracted, right? One of their other bigger problems, that $20 million deal might start getting shaky. So they're going to veer off. And they might just say yeah, do that thing. And you're like, oh, great. The story I think of the ultimate member of senior management would have been Joseph Stalin. And there's a building in Moscow that is 2 different architectural styles because they had 2 different sets of plans. Stalin was drunk. And so there's dots of wine on these 2 plans, and they're overlapped, and he signed across them. Now think of it this way. You're the project manager going, but Comrade Stalin, Stalin is drunk. Stalin is hungover. Stalin has sent people to the gulag for less than this. So build it as he said. So it's one design and then breaks to a second. Why that way? No one wanted to go to senior management and ask for a clarification. So we did the thing. So never invoke senior management with an absolute plan in place where they can just go and say, okay, yeah, that works, sign. Make sure it's reasonable, though. If you go and want to spend 25% of the IT budget, you're going to get some looks. So make it sane, and you may make some compromises even before you talk to them. But have a plan in place so you can just say, I have a solution, trust me. All I need is you to go, sign here, done. So the final group of people who can help you get what you need are your customers and business partners. This is dangerous, but it can be very helpful. So they can have a lot of influence. One of your customers says, we want this thing. Well, this customer said, we want this thing because there's an either or. We may walk. We may not re-up. We may not use you for everything we were going to use you for. It's tricky to work with because you can't emit too much. Case in point, I had a client at a previous gig who had, they did no automated testing of their application. Their model was, we peer reviewed it, and it was so really it's, if it compiles, it's good? Well, yes. Okay. And they had one of those make or break kind of clients. A client that we will probably be 60% of your revenue if we sign. So the salespeople are I really want this sale. And you can tell because I look on the salesperson's laptop and they're pricing out boats. That's a sign that says someone thinks a deal is in the making. Oh yeah. And they're They're not small boats. They're like 45 footers. I'm like, someone's making some serious cash. Okay, I see now why you're asking me, can you change this in the vendor assessment document? I'm like, I'm not going to lie. I mean, I will give you the best version of the truth. I will answer the question, but do you do automated testing of the application? I can't say yes if you're not. And we had this conversation with the client, and the client said, look, we really want your application. We want this tool. We have an app scan license. We will scan your application for you. And I'm like, an app scan license is serious cash. So you're going to, so we can check, yes, we do automated scanning. You're going to pay for it. Yes, we're willing to do that. I'm like, take the money and run, man, to do it. That was, though, a very carefully, because I didn't want to say, no, we don't do that. Well, how do you know it? How do you know your code's not vulnerable? Like, I don't. Would you like me to lie and say it looks secure for where I'm sitting? But instead it's to say, you really, okay, you want this. I'm not willing to overlook it. I'm willing to help you meet our standards. And so that's where we got to, right? They offset costs. We want you to do things this way. Well, that's more expensive. Fine, we'll pay it. Or, we love your product. Is it HIPAA compliant? No. And sometimes that's say, well, thank you for your time. We're going. And sometimes the customer may say, what would it cost to make it HIPAA compliant? Okay, 20% more. Okay, you're still cheaper than competitor X. Okay, now you're in a new business, guys. You now have a healthcare client. Now you can sell more of them. And sometimes you go and you use that first client to then go back to your management and say, look, it's going to cost us this to ramp up for this new market, but the enthusiasm of that regulated client, because none of the other tools they have that are HIPAA compliant do they like, maybe we can sell this that we're going to spend on making it compliant is worth getting into the market. Don't view it as it's going to cost us X amount of dollars to do this client. Think of it as it's going to cost us X amount of dollars to get into this market. And if we get another healthcare provider, it's half as much. It's all about how do you characterize the expense. We have to do this thing. In no way did we say, yeah, we're HIPAA compliant and not do the thing. We're figuring out a way that we can offset the cost and sell it to our own management to say, we're going to do the thing. Here's a way of making it sting less. So, building coalitions. Recognize these may be temporary alliances. HR wants a thing, and you want a thing. You can get together and say, look, maybe it comes out of both of our budgets. Maybe us groups together can go petition the powers that be and get the buy-in we need. The problem is that just because you're working together on this thing, maybe you also want to do more restrictive policies. And HR is like, nope. So you have to recognize we want this thing together. You oppose us on this other thing. So coalitions are shifting alliances. This isn't Game of Thrones, but this is instead you and I want this thing. We will work together on this thing. We will reserve that other conflict for a later date. Fragile connections, though, sometimes can make this a little ugly, where you decide that maybe the other side wants something that is really, really, really inefficient or is bad or broken, or it's not the tool you would ever suggest to your worst enemy, and they're bought on it. Maybe you just let the coalition die and don't get the thing, and you try again later. Desire to not rock the boat can make the good pretty damn bad. I'm thinking of a client of mine. This was after we came in after, and they had bought like the wrong product for 2FA, and it didn't work for about 30% of their environment. And it's like, well, who bought this? Like, well, we fought it, and they went ahead and did it anyway. It's like, so now we have to make it work for the remaining 30% of our environment. Oh, this is ugly. because they screwed up. They basically let the coalition broke, and the coalition kept running with it. So, takeaways. People generally want to do the right thing. The problem is they have their own priorities, they have their own budgets, they have their own interests, and oftentimes they will serve their own interests before they serve yours, and they will just let your interest, security, fall by the wayside. However, skills learned here. Once you learn these skills, you can apply them elsewhere. So, questions? Mm-hmm.
That's going to take me 6 months to implement and cost me $500,000. And I could do it in like 2 weeks using this open source tool and have better results. And you say that and they buy it. But, they buy into the idea, but they don't recognize the value that you have just delivered, even if you are able to deliver on that promise. How do you really communicate with that? I can save you 6 months and $500,000 and you don't even see.
You bring that up when you've actually rolled the product. Because I'm thinking of the people I know who have said that, and I'm thinking of an old coworker of mine who went, we don't need to buy this enterprise grade product. We can roll our own. And a year and a half later, we finally rolled our own custom coded DHCP server. And I'm still wondering, why did we roll our own DHCP server that cost us, we initially budgeted $20,000. It was like $275,000 because we didn't want some enterprise grade one. So you can bring that up when you're done, because your open source or I can make something else work for cheaper and better only works, that argument only works when you're done. And look, I shipped it. And even then, the only people who really care will be your fellow techies and maybe you've been able to liberate that budget. That bullet point goes on your resume and you sell it in 18 months when you go for another job. As save my company a lot of money. Yeah.
I work in a kind of small IT firm with a lot of people, and one security person is me. How do you gain the trust or the respect of peers to have them come to you when they're putting in new technologies or when new finance system is going in? How do you get them to get their trust to come to you and kind of vet those programs or those applications that are coming in?
Have you been asked yet?
No.
Okay. Because you have to gain their trust, and the way you do that is by being approachable. Because usually I've helped people get back from after they've done this the wrong way. The wrong way is to say, no, that, the words, that's stupid, you're wrong, should not be in your vocabulary. There's a better way to do this. I think we can meet all of your needs and make it secure. Security is an add-on. It's like a paint job. We know it isn't. But to them, you want to make it look, we can do all the things plus this. One way is, if you have the time, is help them solve their problems and just slide security in. Do you need help evaluating those vendors? I found 3 vendors for this that fit our budget and seem to be well regarded. And you tack in the security capabilities you like in there. So that way you are being helpful to them. You're helping them with vendor selection, and you're just adding a condition, is one way. Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We don't want to bother you because, the developer has that, so whatever, you know what I mean?
The need for security to be involved early is, I gave another talk about this because it's the idea of, hey, we bought this, now secure. You're like, oh, that's the last time I could have been of help. Yeah. Instead, you want to be early in, so you're talking like, hey, let me help you do vendor selection. Let me help you get requirements. And so that way you're acting as like a general purpose IT person. And most of us in security can be a general purpose IT person. Let me help you figure out what our requirements are and needs are. If you like, I'll go talk to, say for example, it's like a finance forecast, a finance application. If you like, I can go talk to finance and see what they liked and don't like about their existing product. And now what you're doing is you've a part of a solution. And two things you're doing. One is you are taking stuff off of their plates that isn't security related. You are showing that you are open and available, and you are showing that you're a part of the team, right? I'm being helpful. I want to help. I want us all to succeed. And you're not Mr. No. And also the whole bit like, I thought you were busy. Like, not too busy to not screw this one up. If you come to me with like, I got that virus again. Now I'm too busy. But $800,000 spend on a finance package? Oh, I want to be at least at one of those meetings. Mm-hmm.
Over to like management, and now that they're management, I heard you bring that up. Now they're management, and they've got a team, and it's adding resources to it. And the internal team sees all of these resources aren't up to some type of standard.
They're not pulling their weight?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. Because like that was too nice to say anything because they were in the position where they didn't know much.
It depends, because sometimes I've found this is that you don't know what that other person does until you absolutely need them. I've been both the guy who said, why is that jackass around? And I've been, people like pointing at me going, why is that jackass around? See if you can, if you're the managers, see if you can put the questionable person in a position where they have to perform. And if they succeed, you get to show to the rest of the team, like, see? Janice, you all thought Janice was, not competent. See how she pulled that out of the fire. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. People are like, and that could be something that's like exactly her specialty. Like, yeah, she reverses malware like a savant but has can't like fix a TCP/IP problem. You're like, okay, there's a piece of malware. Why does it do the thing it does? And, when 8 hours later she pops out a report and it's like, oh, that's why we have her. Go to her for that thing. It's that like showing everyone else's skills. And if she falls over, you go, well, that's now a learning experience for her to go like, see, you're not pulling your weight. Maybe you should figure out something else you can do to pull the weight. It's like put people to the test. Not in an artificial mean way. It's not like, hey, you got to go pen test this system. Where's my laptop? Oh, we found you a special one. Best of 1999 there, babe. Go. Like, oh God. Yeah, you want to put them, make them work there so that way they prove to the rest of the team that they're competent. Or not. I think, is that it for time? Cool. Thanks so much.